Hey guys, my name is Logan. I am with Match Grade Machine. If you're having headspace issues in your Thompson Center Contenders or Encore rifles, we're going to teach you how to fix that with the Bellm Shim kit, and we're going to teach you how to install that in this video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how to put the Bellm bushing kit behind the firing pin bushing in your Encore frame. This will be the same process for the Contender or the Encore. And what that does is it essentially changes your barrel to frame gap, and it closes in and reduces headspace. So if you have excessive headspace, it will push that firing pin bushing closer to your barrel, reducing headspace, getting it in spec. Let's take apart this frame. We'll take out that firing pin bushing, we'll install the shims in the thickness needed, and we'll see how it goes. But first, let's check headspace. So right here, I've got a 22 Creedmoor. This one's a 1-to-7 twist with straight fluting. I've got go and no go. So let's just start with no go, because if it is able to close on a no go gauge, then we know we have an issue. So we'll go ahead and throw the no go in. Locks up just fine. Opens, closes. Everything works just fine. So let's go ahead and pull this out. Now we need to know how much space there is between the no go gauge and the frame. So let's close it back up in here. You will need a set of feeler gauges. I've got a few here, and let's go ahead and try out 4 thousandths behind the no-go gauge between the frame. So it looks like 4 thousandths won't quite go. Let's see if we can get 3 thousandths down in there. And it's snug, but we can get 3 thousandths in there. So we need to bring that up about 4 thousandths to close that gap, so that the no-go gauge will not close inside of this frame. Let's tear it apart. I'll show you guys how to do it. All right, so right here, we've got our frame and our barrel. We're gonna obviously have to take the frame off of the barrel. So let's go ahead and pull that no-go gauge out, set it aside, and we're gonna go ahead and punch out the pin that holds the receiver on the barrel. All right, so now we've got our frame off of our barrel. We're going to have to cock our hammer to get access to the Allen head that holds this black firing pin bushing in the frame. So if you guys can see this black circle in here, that's your firing pin bushing. It's what your firing pin protrudes through, and that's the bushing that holds it in there. So you actually have an Allen head behind the hammer on the frame of your Encore frame back here. You're going to have to cock your hammer back and lock it back in order to access that Allen head. And so the way you do this, there's a small arm in here that will lock out your hammer. So what you're going to have to do is depress that while you cock your hammer. It doesn't take a whole lot of force. Pull it back, and you can do that. You can also do it with your hand. I'm just trying to do it with an Allen wrench to give you guys a better view. So the way you do that, you just take your finger in there underneath, push it back towards the hammer, pull your hammer back till it locks, release it, and you're good to go. Your hammer can drop at this point, so don't get your finger between here and pull the trigger. That's not gonna feel good. So at this point, we're ready to pull out this Allen. Just grab your Allen key here. Some of these may be pretty tight. Make sure you get the right size, because you do not want to strip that. That will give you a headache for sure. Put your thumb in front of that firing pin bushing. You want to pull the Allen out before you let it fall out. So word of advice here, there's a spring behind your firing pin bushing. Do not lose the spring to your firing pin. So I would cup your hand like this and try and very carefully dump it into your hand. There we go. So here's what came out of it. As you can see, the firing pin protrudes through there on this firing pin bushing. It's also got a small spring back here. So if these come apart, you can lose this spring. Let me go ahead and show you what it looks like. That way, if you've lost it, you can hopefully find it again. It is a cone shape, and the smaller end goes towards the bevel on this, like this. That's how it would install. All right, so as we look at the firing pin bushing here, we've also got one of these shims from the Bellm kit. If we drop this on the firing pin bushing, the Allen head is actually offset of center, because the firing pin has to go through the center here. So these bushings are completely round, essentially flat washers. And so it actually blocks off the threads that hold this bushing to the frame. So when you install these, you're gonna have to cut a small little pizza wedge out of this thing, and a pair of medium duty scissors will do that. You don't have to be super precise with it, but obviously you wanna leave as much material around here as possible. So just take off a small little slice here. You can go ahead and put it on your firing pin bushing to get an idea of how much you need to cut away, but you will need to cut your shims here before you put them in your frame and try and thread that back in. So unfortunately, this is not a drop-in kit. You do have to do a little bit of modifications to your shims here. In this shim kit, they come with an array of different thicknesses. The fastest way to kind of sort through these is to kind of feel how rigid they are. Like this one's pretty soft. That one's going to be like, and they also have them labeled here. So this one might be the 2,000th or the 1,000th. If you start stacking them up, you can get quite a bit of shims here. Like I said, we need to change ours at least 4, so we might bump up to about 5. This one feels like the most rigid of the bunch. And then obviously you just take a pair of calipers. There we go. So this is my 5,000th bushing. And like I said, we need to cut a small wedge out of this thing. So let's go ahead and take our scissors and then just carefully cut into this thing. Careful not to cut it in half. You don't want to do that. And so this is the shape of the bushing after I've cut it. Looks like I will be able to cleanly get my screw down into those threads, no issue. So I've still got this spring and the firing pin in here. Let's grab my frame. The bushings are going to sit down behind the firing pin bushing, and then you can look through the back here and line up the threads on your firing pin bushing. So I'm going to hold the firing pin bushing with my index finger while my frame is pointed down, kind of supporting the frame with it. Tighten this guy up. You just need it snug. You don't need to break the cap of the Allen off or anything trying to hold that on. It's nice and snug. So at this point, let's release our hammer and then let's reinstall our frame back on the barrel. Got our House of Arms punch here. It's plastic so it doesn't hurt your frame. Let's get this guy started. And then we'll use our punch. Okay, so without anything in there, our frame is still able to lock up. No issues. Pull the hammer back, fire it. There we go. It's all good. All right, guys, I actually ended up having to go back in and add one more shim to this. But let's go ahead and try our no-go gauge again. And as we close it up, this barrel will not lock up. Yeah, it's unable to close. It's not going to work for us. So the no-go gauge is doing its job, and it is not going in there. Let's try our go gauge to make sure we don't have too many spacers in here. Locks up just fine. Pull the hammer back, fire it, unlocks, good to go. One more check on the no-go gauge. We'll throw it in there, close it up. Doesn't latch up, not doing its job. There we go. We have corrected the headspace from this frame to this barrel. So these Mike Bellm shim kits do work. That's how you install them. And hopefully this will alleviate an issue that you may be having with one of our barrels. So as time goes on, since Smith & Wesson has purchased Thompson Center, we've seen their tolerances in their frames grow worse and worse with the modern frames. Obviously, there may be some different tolerances in some of the older frames as well. Our test frames that we check headspace with, we try and make sure they fall in line with the vast majority of the frames that are out there. We test them continuously as we go. So if you happen to have a frame that's out of that tolerance, we apologize, but it's beyond our control. We're doing our best. Thompson Center needs to step up their tolerances on their end. This Mike Bellm shim kit can alleviate excessive headspace in our rifles. If you're having any other type of headspace issues with our barrels, please contact us, drop a comment below, send us an email, or give us a call. So we want to get you helped out. We want you to experience the full potential of what your barrel may have to offer. So I greatly appreciate you guys' time. I hope it answered some of your questions, and we will see you guys in the next video.